All right, so now let's have a look at the other parts of this task, part B and C, and then the last bit. It says here to make sure that the total earnings shows a currency, they should say sign, with no decimal places. Currency sign with no decimal places. Okay, so all this data, currency. So currently looks like a number. We need to right click it and go to Format Cells. And then we go to Currency and we can leave it as dollars, that's fine. It's currently showing 2 decimal places. You can see here there's .22, .00, and we need to lower that to 0 decimal places, so there's no decimal places, and there you go, that's done. Okay, if anything looks like it's not fitting, then you can just make sure you elongate the column. Okay, that's part B done. Part C is make sure the data is presentable and that all the data is visible. Right, to make something presentable, it normally means to do things like making sure there's borders around everything. So let's do that first. Select all the data, go to the borders icon, and then you can just do all borders. You can also make sure that the headings are bold, and maybe you can change the color of the background of these cells. So whatever color you want. I don't know, we can make it bright yellow. And then you've also got to make sure that all the data is visible. All the data is visible. You can see here, for example, movie number 48. It says Star Wars Episode 7, The Force, and it has stopped there to AWA. And we can see up here it's supposed to say Awakens. So you've got to make the columns wider. An easier way to make sure that all the data can be seen is to select the columns like this, going along the top of the letters, and then just double clicking on the right hand side, and this automatically resizes the columns to make sure that the largest entry in that column can be seen. So these ones, they've got ... in it anyway, but that's what they look like. There's no more letters after it, you can see that. So that's fine to keep it like that. Okay, so that's how you make sure that the data is visible. You actually resize the column. Presentable, we've done 2 things, remember. We've done the borders and we've done the headings, making them stand out by changing the color of the cell and by making the text bold. There's nothing else you really need to do if you don't want to. If you really wanted to and you had and you felt like you had quite an important row of column of information, you could, if you wanted to, maybe make that one different shade or whatever if you wanted to, but it's okay, it's not necessary. Okay, so that part's done. And the last part is saving. Right, save the spreadsheet as task SS1. Currently it's called movies.xls, isn't it? So we're going to save it as task SS1. And then also it says set the page so if it was to print, it would fit on 1 page. Actually, I'm going to make this instruction 1, 2, 3. I didn't select it. Let's put this before this, right? Set the page. Oof, what has happened there? Set the page so if it was to print, it would all fit on 1 page. Let's do that first. If I go to File and I go to Print, you can see I've got all my data looking lovely, but it's on 2 pages. Page 1 and then page 2. I want it to fit on 1 page. There's a couple of things you can do to make it fit onto 1 page. One of the first things you should do is check whether you need to change the page orientation. That's particularly if you have lots of columns. But in this case, I don't really have a lot of columns. My data is longer. So I'm going to leave it as portrait. But what I'm going to do is, first of all, change the margins to narrow margins. And that just takes away some of the margins from the top and the sides. And then I'm going to change where it says no scaling. I'm going to change it to fit the sheet onto 1 page. That's how you make sure data fits onto 1 page. And you can see here now I've only got 1 page. So once you set it up like this, I mean, it looks the same here, but when it goes to printing, it will only print on 1 page. And then if the task has asked you to do that, then you just make sure you do it. If I just zoom in on this, can I zoom in on that? I can see it's looking fine and lovely and all 51 records are there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that specific part, and you've got to do this because a lot of students miss this out, but you've got to save it exactly as it's asking you to save it. So this is saying save the spreadsheet as task SS1. We are going to do that. File, save as. I'm putting everything on my desktop at the moment. You make sure it goes back in the movie spreadsheet folder. So this is going to be called task SS1. That's it. Press save. And that's done. And we're going to carry on working on the same spreadsheet that we've just saved, SS1, with the next lot of tasks. Okay, so part 2 is now done, and we'll move on to part 3.